Ozzy from OzTalksHW with another fun experiment. Back in 2018, I SLI'd two sets of video cards that do not natively support SLI. There were two GTX 1060s and two GT 1030s. Now the way I did this was through a software called Different SLI Auto. It enables SLI on non-SLI capable motherboards and non-SLI capable video cards. And it also allows you to mix different Nvidia video cards for SLI, so a GTX 960 and a GTX 1050, for example. Ever since the announcement of the RTX 2060s, I have longed to test out the new generation of Nvidia cards with Different SLI Auto. So when Nvidia sent an RTX 2060, my mind went straight to one thing. How fast would two of these cards be? I'm sure most of you already know about the RTX 2060. It's currently the cheapest offering from Nvidia that has ray tracing cores in the gaming market, and it retails for about $400. It has 6 gigs of GDDR6 memory, a 1680 core clock, and a 1750 memory clock. It performs closely to a GTX 1070 Ti, and it currently offers the best value out of all of the RTX 20 cards, though that doesn't say that much, because they're all not the best value. Nonetheless, Nvidia did ensure very high build quality with this card. The Founders Edition looks and feels phenomenal. Now, for approximately the last decade and a half, frugal gamers who wanted enthusiast level performance would take mid-range cards such as the 2060 and run them in SLI or Crossfire if you were an ATI or AMD kind of guy. This configuration was generally cheaper than picking up an enthusiast card and netted similar performance. Because of the support that multi-GPU setups had at the time, it was a very sound decision. Nowadays, that choice just doesn't make sense. SLI has gone down the drain in terms of support because game developers don't want to take the amount of time to implement SLI properly for the small amount of users who actually run multi-GPU setups. On top of that, the price of mid-range cards like the 2060 are increasing in price, so picking up two of them doesn't make as much sense, simply because a single card for the same price would probably give you better support and better performance. Nvidia is also limiting the number of SLI capable devices. The RTX 2080 Ti and 2080 are the only 20 series cards that officially support multi-GPU gaming, and they use NVLink instead of traditional SLI. NVLink is new to the gaming space, but the workstation market has utilized it for years. In SLI, you essentially have two video cards that render two separate frames and transfer that information to the monitor, so resources aren't shared. With NVLink, the cards share memory and work cooperatively to increase bandwidth and send that information to the monitor. Resources are shared, and it acts as a single virtual video card. Theoretically, it should perform better than traditional SLI and put less stress on developers to program with multi-GPU setups in mind. Now, the biggest downside is, of course, the cost. You're looking at $700+ just to get started with an NVLink capable device, and then another $80 to get the bridge to connect them. So multi-GPU setups nowadays, they're a premium. I'll be honest, it was wishful thinking to assume that this configuration would work properly out of the box, considering how new the 2060 is and how new the drivers that work with the 2060 also are. Fortunately enough, the Different SLI Auto community was extremely helpful, and within an hour I got the setup working. Now, it did take some modification outside of the standard instructions. I did have to change a few system files here and there, but once that was done, everything was functional. Different SLI Auto, of course, doesn't come without its caveats, and if you've watched my other SLI videos, then you know what these are. The biggest one is that you have to use it in test signing mode. Since you are modifying the drivers, you need a custom signature in order for that to work, and using test signing mode is the only way for Windows to authorize that. That's not an issue in its own right, but most anti-cheat software that come with multiplayer games do detect that as a false positive and won't let you play a lot of your favorite titles. I know people will be wondering, so I'm going to be extremely explicit here. Because of this issue, I did not test popular multiplayer games such as CSGO, Fortnite, or PUBG. And I say this because I just have this feeling that someone with a Maximilian Muss avatar is going to comment down below, you should test Fortnite. For some reason though, I still believe that someone is typing up that comment right now just to be extremely cheeky, and I'm probably gonna pin it, so yeah, good on you. You win internet points. But in all honesty, this is a big downside. I couldn't test games such as Battlefield 5, and that means that I don't know if ray tracing is working correctly with this configuration. I'm assuming it's gonna work just fine, but based on the results that I've seen, and I'll show you guys pretty soon, it's probably not gonna make that big of a difference, and you're better off with a single 2060 anyway. I tested my RTX 2060s with a Ryzen 5 2600X, 4x4 gigs of DDR4 memory at 2666, a 120 gigabyte boot SSD, a 1 terabyte drive for games, and a Seasonic AirTouch 850 watt power supply. I played all the games at 1440p or 4K to push the cards as far as possible, and the operating system is Windows 10 64-bit. I expected the two 2060s to perform pretty closely to a 2080, and on some occasions, they performed closely to a 2080 Ti. Those times were awesome, but a lot of the time too, they performed worse than a single 2060. It was honestly a crapshoot. Let's show some benchmarks so you can get a feel of what I mean. 3D Mark showed some wonderful scaling as I expected. Time Spy was in the 2080 Ti range, which is the 2060 SLI configuration at its finest. Firestrike was a bit lower, but still touched 2080 performance. Unigine Heaven 4.0 showed about 50% scaling at 1440p too. The only game that had positive scaling was Overwatch. At 1440p with epic settings and a 150% render scale, I saw a 60% performance increase from a single card to a dual card setup. After that, the benchmarks went down the drain. There was no performance difference in Forza Horizon 4 between a dual card and a single card setup. GTA 5 had a performance decrease, and Shadow of the Tomb Raider crashed several times in DirectX 12 mode. Unfortunately, GTA 5 and Tomb Raider both scale extremely well in native SLI or using NVLink. It's a shame that my 2060 SLI configuration with modded drivers could not replicate the results that most people would see with officially supported drivers. I suppose the driver modification isn't 100% stable and caused issues with games. Overall, the 2060s in SLI worked well in theory. In the simulated benchmarks and in Overwatch, I got some pretty awesome scaling, but in everything else, it was very buggy, lots of crashes, and inconsistent overall. I wouldn't recommend it. Of course, it goes without saying that the era of dual mid-range cards outperforming a single top-end card has come to an end. Games don't support multi-GPU setups as well as they used to, and with companies axing multi-GPU support on their lower-end and mid-range options, you're left with nowhere else to go. But there is still hope. Multi-GPU support is possible, and it can work really well, evident with Shadow of the Tomb Raider. In DirectX 12 mode, and even using native SLI, you get some awesome scaling, and in NVLink you get even better performance. So the possibility is still there. On top of that, with adaptive sync technology becoming more affordable, the screen tearing issues that you usually get with SLI or Crossfire setups is non-existent. And maybe there's a revival to be had in the future. I can see NVLink really taking off and becoming what SLI once was. And although Nvidia is killing SLI, they're replacing it with the NVLink, which seems like a beneficial choice for everyone. Developers don't have to work as hard, you get better scaling overall, and it's just a better choice for the company and for the consumers. If you guys like this video, then leave a like. If you found it useful, helpful, interesting, any of that stuff, then you can subscribe, click the bell notification so you can get notified of when I upload new videos. And yeah, thanks again for supporting. I really do appreciate it, you guys. And sorry for not uploading this on Sunday. I just needed a day off, and I'm glad I did it because I think the video turned out much better than it would have if I rushed it. And that's probably my roommate cooking, if you can hear that pounding. But that's it for this video, guys. See you guys soon. Just kidding.